All right, everyone, welcome to another segment of Burning the Boats here on the OMG Show. Today's guest is someone who I'm very excited to speak about. I just the amount of people telling me how awesome she is, and the fact that she's had so much experience in such a short amount of time lets me know that she actually knows what she's talking about. So, Jamie, good morning. How you doing? Good morning for me, but I think it's afternoon for you. So,
Thank you so much for having me on, Oscar. And hi, everyone listening to the OMG show. I'm really happy to be here, excited to drop some value bombs, and I'm doing awesome. It's a beautiful day here in Florida, sunny. Just got back, well, not just, but yesterday went to an awesome Halloween party, so
nice.
had a lot of fun. Did you do anything fun for Halloween?
I was actually in the middle of Seattle. I'm out here in Tawilka, which is just like 3 minutes outside of the city, and it was freezing last night, so I decided to stay in.
Oh, no. I don't blame you. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, to just catch some horror movies, so I'm more of a movie guy. So like watching The Shining and stuff is kind of right up my alley.
That's classic. That's an excellent way to spend a Halloween.
Yeah, that's it.
Way better than freezing too.
Yeah. No. So, tell the listeners just a little bit about your background. I really want to kind of take us on the journey that you went on from beginning to middle to end to where you are today, and ultimately where you want to go. So if you can, let's just jump right into where you started. In this
Absolutely.
whole world.
Yeah. So when I was 18, and before that, like through high school, I was a musician. So I knew that I was going to go to college for music school. So I spent you have to prepare. You can't, art is also the same way. You can't just apply to college and say, I picked music as my major. You have to prepare a portfolio and interview things on the way to do that. So it's not exactly the same as when you apply to college and then you're like, I'm going to be an English major. And they're like, great, here you are in the English program.
Yeah, there's a little bit more of a resistance to kind
absolutely. So there's more hoops that you have to jump through and a whole audition process that you have to go through. And you have to be both accepted into if you're doing it at a university, the college itself, well, the university, and then the music college separately from that. So I played an instrument called the bass clarinet, and that's what I was looking to do when as my major for my performance degree. And it's a very uncommon instrument. Normally, the path that you would take to study bass clarinet would be that you would do your bachelor's of arts in the soprano clarinet or the B-flat clarinet, which is just the regular one. And then you would probably graduate with your bachelor's in that, and then you would look to do a master's of classical music performance in a bass clarinet. Okay. So I was like, I was about to say F that. Can we curse on here or no?
Yeah, go for it. It's fine.
Okay, so I'm like, fuck that. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's an important thing to know actually before I start telling my stories. But I'm like, fuck that. I'm a bass clarinetist. I'm not going to be doing anything with the soprano clarinet.
Yeah.
So that really limited my choice of schools. So there were only 2 institutions at the time that I was applying in the United States that had a bachelor's program for bass clarinet. So I had to broaden my school applications to outside of the country as well. So I wound up applying to 5 schools, 2 in the US, 2 in the Netherlands, and then 1 in Switzerland. So I'm 18 and all the results are coming in and stuff like that. And I got my acceptance things, and now you get to choose from where you're accepted to. Yeah. So I ultimately decided for the professor, I liked him, and also the school itself was very good, to study in Bern, Switzerland at this place called the Hochschule der Künste Bern. It is translated in English to the University of Applied Sciences, even though that's not actually really what any of those words mean, but that's what they decided their English name is. Okay, so, okay. And it's a music conservatory. So that means that music is the only thing that they teach there.
Okay.
So I moved to Switzerland, and I just had all of the same experiences that you have, like when you move out of your parents' house and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, the fridge doesn't just like restock itself. Like laundry just doesn't become clean by magic elves. Like
Right, right,
I have
right.
to do it.
Yeah,
And
she
I
has
had,
to work.
yeah, and I had all of those life experiences except in German. So it was pretty tough. And the interesting thing about Switzerland is that, it was not a study abroad program. Like I was accepted to a foreign institution.
Mm-hmm.
So I had an education visa for my, like that allowed me to be in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And with their education visa, for the first 6 months, you're not allowed to work at all.
Wow.
And then after the first 6 months, you're allowed to work a maximum of 10 hours a week. So I'm like,
Whoa.
that's not going to work for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Switzerland is very expensive. And I was like, well, that's not going to work out. So I definitely need some money.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I do to make money that, doesn't involve, like, I'm not going to be applying for a job at the grocery store. Obviously, I can't work with Swiss people, but I can't work with Swiss people at all. The money can't come into my Swiss bank account, which I do have one, but it's not as fun as it used to be. That's more like so 90s
Yeah.
shelter. They're like a mandatory IRS reporter now. I think the hot new thing is like Caribbean islands.
Yeah. Kirk and Kagos or something like that.
Yeah. So, and I'm just like racking my brain, like, what is it that I can do that, like, I can't work with Swiss people.
Mm-hmm.
The money can't come into my Swiss bank account because the government can see that.
Mm-hmm.
And, it has to be fairly flexible hours because of the fact that, like, well, if I have to work with Americans or something, there's going to be a huge time difference. So I can't say, like, because, there's a lot of stuff you can do from home. Like you could be at Apple or Amazon, support like person or whatever. But like I cannot say, oh yeah, I'll be there from like 4 to 6, but actually I'm in Switzerland. And being a
So pretty much
musician,
like by the system, you had to design a way to fly under the radar.
totally, and
Yeah.
like be really flexible.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, instead of doing something like that, and I can't commit to a block schedule either, because as a musician, like you have your regular, if you can call it a regular schedule of practicing, but then obviously as the concert is getting closer, you have additional rehearsals and stuff like that too. So I can't, like, it has to be totally location independent, hourly flexible. And pretty much I was really interested in just doing like being paid for results,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily for the hours that I'm spending
Gotcha.
on the stuff. So I was like, well, I guess I will teach myself a skill. Mm-hmm. So I looked on Reddit. You're familiar with Reddit, I guess,
absolutely.
right?
It's one of my favorite research tools. So
absolutely. And if anyone isn't, you can check it out. It's reddit.com.
Mm-hmm.
I went on a specific subreddit, which just a brief overview. If you're not familiar, Reddit is pretty much like internet forums, but like giant internet forums. Like, if you want to talk about dogs, you want to talk about football, like they have forums for it on Reddit.
Topics for literally everything. People ask questions, people respond to, those questions. It's literally a gold mine if you're doing some research.
Yeah, it's kind of like underground Quora.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I find that Reddit has a lot more genuine and authentic people than a lot of different other sources. It's kind of like that community within Reddit has cultivated itself to kind of be like, I guess I don't know how to say it, but it's kind of like the real people of the internet in a way. So.
Yeah, and they're really strict about I would say like enforcing the rules of their culture. So like on Quora and Yahoo Answers and stuff, it's totally overrun with like people like, you're like, oh yeah, what's the best way to learn about why my Facebook ads didn't convert? And here's like my really detailed question that I put a lot of thought into. And so please help me. And it will be like, oh yeah, actually, no promo here, but I'm like the director of marketing at this Facebook course company. Right. Here's all the links to all of our stuff. And on Reddit, that just totally doesn't fly.
Yeah.
That you're going to get banned for doing that. So it's really interesting. And yeah, I would agree with you that I think the quality of like answers and conversation and discourse is just so much higher there than it is on some of these other things.
Gotcha. Okay, so you were
So
looking at Reddit to kind of see what you could do to
yeah,
train.
so there's a subreddit called for hire. So if you wanted to go to that one, it would just be reddit.com/r/for hire as one word. This is a forum where people are pretty much like what it says. They're posting. If you want to get hired by people, you post there. If people are trying to hire people, they post there too. So I went on there and I was looking specifically through for hire because I'm like, what are people like hiring other people to do? Like, how can I make money? What do you want to pay me to do? So I saw like a lot of marketing stuff come up and I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is a skill that I'll teach myself. And so that's really how I got started is that I started with whiteboard videos actually, which is like,
wow.
yeah, I remember when those were popular.
Yeah. A couple years ago.
Yeah. So that's probably like 5 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
So that should kind of place it for the timeline for anyone. It's 2019. Like, when you're listening to this in 2050, we're discussing this in 2019 today. But yeah, so that's really how I got started was that I just saw that like marketing was a popular skill and I'm like, well, what's something that I can learn how to do? And I started doing whiteboard videos and that was pretty much mostly what I did for the first like year or two or year and a half or so of marketing. At a certain point, I lived in Switzerland for a year and then I decided I didn't want to be a music major anymore, but obviously like you can't, because I mean, all these orchestras are going to go bankrupt. Like you think that our generation is going to save them. Like,
yeah.
want to pay 99 cents for a movie. So
okay.
it just doesn't seem like it, as I was going through the training and stuff, and it's just incredibly difficult. I have to practice every day for like anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. And that's just to keep up with my, you have a private instructor for your stuff. So like, that's only to keep up with what I'm doing for at the end of your semester in music school. You have to go through something called a jury, which this is the same in art too.
Yeah.
But you basically have to submit, you go and perform in front of a panel of judges, like prepared pieces that you've been working on for the whole semester, and they give you a grade. And basically, like what's hard about music, people always say that music and art and stuff is an easy major. And I'm like, you just obviously don't understand how it works because you could actually fail. Like you can fail and not progress to your next, like they won't unlock the next sets of courses for you if you fail your jury. And it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter your grades. It doesn't matter how hard you worked. If you just have a bad day on your jury and you fail, like they don't let you do it again.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Is I grew up in Miami, and a lot of my friends went to Dash, so design, architecture school, whatever. I don't know, but they were very heavy in terms of like music and also like design and art. And I mean, my friends would just practice 8 hours a day. In fact, like one of my favorite YouTube channels is called Two Set Violin. Why? I don't know, but it's about these two violin players who are classically trained, and they have a running joke where it's like you have to practice 40 hours a day.
Yes. I mean, it really is like that. And I mean, music school is tough. Like, I actually, while I was living in Switzerland, I became really depressed, and my mom actually had to fly back to spend some 2 weeks with me to make sure that I was okay. I don't think I was as bad as she thought, but she was really afraid that I was going to kill myself. I was definitely depressed, but I was not like.
So let's take a moment and talk about that, because right now, kind of the picture that I kind of see is, you kind of, went to a whole different country to do music, right, in a very specific program. However, you couldn't necessarily work because you had a visa that put restrictions on what you could do.
Yeah.
And then you were trying to figure out what kind of skills you could learn. But then at the same time, it sounds like this whole idea that you had has now kind of been flipped upside down. And now you're kind of questioning, what am I actually doing here?
Exactly. And it was really, I mean, music at that point was my whole identity. Like in my high school years, how I was preparing to go and even be able to audition for any of these schools, like let alone be accepted to them and go forward with this as my course of study.
Right.
I was homeschooled, but like I went to community college instead. So
Mm-hmm.
I was already performing at a collegiate level. So I had a lesson instructor there. I
Mm-hmm.
had another lesson instructor who lived in New York, and he was like with the New York Metropolitan and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
had another lesson instructor who lived in New Jersey, who I met through
Wow.
like a training performance program that I did over the summer. And he
Yeah.
lived like 45 minutes away from us in New Jersey. So I was studying with him.
Yeah.
And then I was studying with the principal bass clarinetist of the Philadelphia Orchestra. So, I mean,
So you were like, you had all these assets, all these resources, and it seems like your schedule was just like
it
there's
was
no there's no
insane.
there's no
It
free
was so
time.
crazy. My mom, like, because I mean, I was doing this since before I could drive, but my mom was like, "Yeah, you're getting your license like the second that you can. I don't have to keep driving you to all this."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh
Um,
man.
but yeah, and I mean, so it really takes a lot of effort. And the thing about studying music or studying art, especially, but it's really in music, is that the environment is just so cutthroat because all of the colleagues that you meet through your classes are your competition.
Yeah.
So it's like your success is actually their failure.
Mhm.
So it's not, I wouldn't say, like, people were nice. I made friends, but does this aspect influence the social dynamics? It does.
So
Absolutely.
I'm a big movie person, right? So one thing that I always relate things to movies that I've seen, and it sounds like, have you ever seen Whiplash?
I haven't.
Okay, so Whiplash is like a jazz movie. It's one of my favorite movies, but
Oh,
it
I'll have to
was
check that out. Is it
yeah.
on, like a Netflix or Amazon or one
It's
of
probably
those
on
things?
Amazon Prime. I highly recommend watching it, just because like one of my favorite lines in the movie is played by the actor. I think his name is J.K. Simmons. He's in all the um, farmers insurance commercials, but he's like, there's no two worse words in the English language other than good job. Because his
Yeah.
whole idea is that like good job takes away any kind of higher standard that you might have. And so he pushes this kid to the limit. And this kid, he's trying to be one of the best, jazz drummers of all time, but he's competing with his best friends. And ultimately he sacrifices his relationships with like his girlfriend, his family, his friends, just
For
dedicated.
the career.
Yeah, absolutely.
And music, I mean, that I am definitely going to watch that. Thank you for recommending. I just messaged my girlfriend right now. I'm like, I want to watch this movie called Whiplash on Amazon. This is what we're doing today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I know for me, because I know how to play the guitar, but it's not like I was classically trained or anything like that. So it'd be interesting to hear your take after you watch it from someone who has been trained, in that kind of environment, to kind of see if they got it right or not. So
Definitely.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll let you know about that when I see you later this month too. But
Sounds good.
from your description, that sounds absolutely right, because that's the thing, is like you have to put. I was sleeping in wrist braces from like repetitive stress injury,
Wow.
but also like, my hands hurt, and that was since high school. Like it was probably later, maybe like when I was 17, because I had to like really, really, really ramp it up. But from 17 and 18, I was sleeping in wrist braces from like repetitive stress injury and pain from, because I mean, what people don't think
Just
about
the
it is like,
pressure.
but it's like you're doing the same. It's like if you're typing for 8 hours a day, except if your hand was somehow in an even like more mangled position.
Yeah.
And bass clarinets are really big. So like, it's really hard. And that was something that was really, and again, like I said, because I know that some of my friends will probably listen to this. So it's not to say that like I didn't make friends. I did make friends, and people are nice, but it would also be foolish to say that this dynamic didn't color the social, interactions that you
And
have.
that's the thing too. It's like, even as entrepreneurs, right? We have our friends, but we also have very different internal struggles and
Yeah.
which way we go about it. And a lot of times it's hard for us to communicate those struggles, because most of the, like, especially the newbie entrepreneur, the one that just started, pretty much their whole life revolves around being behind a laptop for most of the time.
Yeah.
And so you lose that perspective, and you kind of get started, in that cycle of doubt inside of your head, and that can go down some very dark places. I mean, would you agree? Or
Yeah, I would. And something that I think is unique to like I would, to draw like a distinction, I would say something that's unique to being a classical musician, even compared to art and even compared to business and stuff, is that, you know, can business be cutthroat? Sure. But the truth is about being a musician, especially going down the classical route, is that it's like being in the NFL, except there's actually more NFL teams than there are professional orchestras. Like each state basically only has one full-time professional orchestra. Mm-hmm. So there are only so many positions available, and people like usually, and especially in some of the top tier places, like, and everyone aspires to be in, people don't leave. I mean, it's like being a Supreme Court justice. Like you get the job and you stay in that job for life. So that's why it's so much like your one person's success is another person's failure, because like they, and I don't, you know, I like abundance mentality, like I believe that for the most part, you know, like if you didn't get an opportunity and somebody else did, that doesn't mean that there's not something out there for you. And that means that this was probably just not the right opportunity for you. But in music, it's not the case. Like somebody literally just fucking took your spot, bro. Like,
yeah, and not only that, but it's like, I would imagine in music, you know, you said, you know, you got the position, so that means one other person didn't. But if you really think about it, it's like maybe 10, 20 other people didn't get that spot.
Oh, hundreds of other people didn't.
Right? So,
like each spot has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications. And even if you make it to the audition phase where they bring you in person, that's at least, you know, 50 to 100 people. And the thing is that you're not only competing with the people who are in your class, you're competing with everyone. You're competing with professional musicians who have been, you know, playing in like the New Jersey Symphony for the last 15 years, and now they want their shot at the New York Met. So it's just really extremely challenging. And the like, I would really say that being in, like, getting a spot in a professional orchestra statistically is harder than getting a spot on the NFL, because at least in the NFL, you have a limit of your career. And also, people get, not that this is a good thing, but you know, people get hurt. Like their career,
at least you can sit on the bench. I'm not sure if there's a bench for the orchestra.
Yeah, there's no bench for the orchestra. So
right.
And it's just like, you know, and most states have more than one professional football team, but really most states in the US only have one full-time professional orchestra. Or if you don't make it like that, you have to do, you know, are there other ways that you could have quote unquote a career in music? Sure. But that's not why you go to music school. You go to music school to be in the Met, to be in the Philadelphia Symphony, to be in the Florida Orchestra. That's why you go to be classically trained at a conservatory.
So then to kind of bring everything kind of back to where you started looking at Reddit for jobs, it kind of sounds like you had this realization that, oh, you know what, like I'm not necessarily 100% passionate about this. It's a dog eat dog type of world. And it sounds like there's some more opportunities out there. Is that kind of where you were, and then you transitioned into it?
Definitely. And so like I became depressed while I was in Switzerland, like just trying to work through all of this stuff, because it's like, so is my idea of a career viable? Like, not really. So, but what am I going to do? And also, like, if I could, so then I wanted to change my major, and you can't change your major in a music conservatory. It's like, oh, well, what other instrument do you want to play? Like, and I'm like, no, that's not it. So I moved back to the States, and I had deferred my enrollment to the University of South Florida because they had a bachelor, Go Bulls. That's where I ultimately graduated from. But they had a bachelor program for bass clarinet, classical music performance. So I deferred my enrollment to there. And I moved back to the States after a year in Switzerland. Pretty much when you transfer to a school, they kind of want you to stay for at least a semester, if not a year, as what they accepted you as. So I had to kind of do that. But I was also at that point, like, trying to wind down my music stuff and figure out, like, you know, what is the next step. You already had a foot out the door. Exactly. And so, like, what is the next step for me? And while I was doing that, I was still doing my freelancing stuff with the whiteboard videos. And I decided that I wanted to start a subscription box company because I wanted to learn other marketing skills. So like I got experience with, WordPress. And this is how I got my first experience with copywriting, because I had to like make the whole website, make emails and everything like that. So it was called Berg Box, because I live in St. Petersburg. And we would curate locally Tampa Bay made products for our boxes. So I wound up growing that. I funded the first, inventory purchase with money that I made from my freelancing.
Nice.
But then I was pretty proud that after the first month, I was breaking even. So I was doing,
that's amazing, especially when you have like a high cost to get sold.
Yeah.
Subscription-based services, that's
Thank you. Thank you.
And
we ultimately grew to 25 subscribers. I did BergBox for about a year.
Okay.
And like I grew it to 25 subscribers, but that's really how I got into marketing, because that was like the first time that I had the experience of how cool it was to be like, oh, I sent this email and now I have like $150 in my PayPal from people buying my boxes.
I can't tell you how many people say like email is dead. And honestly, it's like the biggest.
I'll let them keep believing that. If you're listening right now, email is dead. Don't fuck with email.
Yeah.
Leave more for me.
Yeah. I'm like, this is crazy. Cause I love list building. Like list building to me is the gold mine. And like you said, I mean, you send out an email and then you get $127 in PayPal. Like it just works like that.
Yeah.
But anyways,
and it really does. Like, if you want to believe that TikTok is the next hotness, you go ahead and focus on that. You go.
No, I'm good. I'm not getting into TikTok at all. So
yeah.
I'll be all right. I'm gonna stay in my lane, do what I do. Okay. So you said you had 25 subscriptions, and that's kind of really where you started learning about marketing. And when you say marketing, what does that mean? Because I feel like marketing is a term that a lot of people don't truly understand. So what's your take on that, and what did you really learn in that process?
Gosh, I feel like if you ask 10 different marketers to define marketing, you're going to get 10 different definitions.
Absolutely.
And for me, I am heavy into sales. Like I don't love the term that HubSpot coined, but marketing. Like that's kind of my approach. I mean, it could be smoother, but I like what you're going for. Kudos, snaps for kudos, A for effort. I don't know that that's the most catchy thing I've ever heard, but
right.
I pretty much see marketing as all of the systems involved in finding strangers, identifying whether or not these strangers are interested in whatever you're selling, selling that thing to them, and then the support on the back end after the fact is pretty much my approach to marketing. So it's just like, in this case, for the subscription box, it was like trying to find people. Like explaining what exactly this is. Although luckily at the time, subscription box were kind of trendy. So most people were like pretty familiar with them. But I really got most of my clients and I had like a list of like 300 people on it. Wow. And I pretty much built that list almost entirely by like shaking people down in the street. Because I would go and be a vendor at local markets. So like, I would be like, hey, do you like chocolate? Like, you like chocolate? If you like that SpongeBob episode.
But driving around.
Yeah, and I would just like really shake people down on the street and like talk to them. Hey, what up? What's up? How are you doing? I don't care if they don't want to talk to me. I want to talk to you. So we're doing this. Oh, can you give me your email? Oh, I don't know. Yep, just sign here.
Were you always like that, or is that something that you gained? Once you actually started owning your subscription business, like were you always kind of like the go-getter?
I feel like the performance background probably helped, like I would say, forge this aspect of my personality. Okay. But I have always been outgoing, and like as a kid, I was like the kid who's like not afraid to talk to adults, and I will just I'll talk to adults like a regular conversation. Like I'm not nervous. My parents used to like to tell all these stories about when they would take me on a cruise as a kid. I have always been an adventurous eater. So all the waiters and stuff and the servers on the ship were like thrilled to have me because I would never order like hot dogs or chicken fingers. I'm like ordering from the real menu. And so then they would always be like bringing me crazy stuff to try. They would be like, here's blue cheese.
Let's see how she reacts.
Yeah, they're like, here's blue cheese, a
little
gift from the chef for you. You want to eat it? And I'm like, yeah, this is good. What is it? And they're like, oh my God, like we just got this like 6-year-old to eat blue cheese. Or they would bring like escargot, or they would just try to whatever crazy stuff. And they'd be like, oh yeah, that's moldy cheese. And I'm like, oh, it's good.
Right,
like, that's snails you're eating.
So this inherent confidence that you had essentially led you to building your list by harassing people.
On the street, yeah, like I was like our local Billy Mays almost.
Nice.
Not to be confused with Billy Mays III, who does live here and does have active music presence here.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so, and then this was another kind of pivotal moment in my life. Well, that like through doing that, I decided that I was going to change my major to the entrepreneurship program that we have at USF.
Okay.
So I had to do some prereqs for that.
Mm-hmm.
And through some of the prereqs, I did economics. I had to do micro and macro. And, but at the same time that I was like kind of doing that, I had also become involved with our school's entrepreneurship club, where I was the marketing officer there. Okay. But I started to get attention for my subscription box. Like I was on ABC Action News locally, and I had they wrote me up in the school newspaper, and then I had another website, downtownstpete.com, did a write-up about me and my subscription box. And then I took my subscription box to like a college pitch competition, the one that they have at the University of Tampa every year. So I did that, and I did not win, despite being the only person who actually had a fucking business. Yeah. The winner, I think, was like, I didn't win because they felt like my market wasn't big. I had a crazy plan because I wasn't going to stay subscription box. I was like, let's make this basically like event planner. I wanted to sell them in bulk instead of selling them one on one, because I thought, there was a lot of stuff going on with the business. Like I was able to break even after the first month, but I was never able to really grow past breaking even because the cost of goods is tough, and the post office like kicks your ass on the rates. And so I was in this like and these are all, I'm telling these all at the same time because they were all going on simultaneously. Mm-hmm. I was in this phase of the subscription box business where 25 subscribers is not enough for people to give you wholesale rates. So I was only getting like a discounted market resale price, which was great, but not as great as wholesale price would be. Right. And I was not able to afford anyone to help me. So I'm just like, the worst part about a monthly subscription box is that like, it sounds fun until you realize that like you get the table picture of your dining room totally taken over. Also, I was doing this all out of my house. So like housing all the stuff there, packing everything there. I lived
you're literally like, sorry, but you're literally in the middle of like transitioning your major. You're trying to understand this new skill set of becoming an entrepreneur and being an entrepreneur. You launched a subscription box, where you have to partner locally with different businesses in St. Pete.
Yep.
At the same time, you're harassing people on the street for your list. And you're managing to break even, and you're wearing all the different hats in the business. Yes. So it sounds like at a certain point, there's going to be a breaking point.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So let's go into that.
And it's just that like, so I did start to get some attention for it. So through that pitch competition, even though I didn't win, one of the investors was really seriously interested in investing in my company. And he reached out to me multiple times about discussing this. And at the same time as that, the St. Petersburg Chamber of Commerce had reached out to me that they wanted to organize a meeting with Chris Steinacher, the president. The marketing director at the time was Christina Auspla. And then I think, Sean Kennedy was there, and I forget if he was like the vice president of the chamber at that time or something, or if he was just there on behalf of the greenhouse. But so I had this meeting with 3 higher ups of our Chamber of Commerce. And they were like, we love what you're doing. with BergBox. We want to buy your company. We want to give you full creative control. We want to sell your products in our the Welcome Center in the city, and we want to just fund anything that you could possibly need. So like you be in charge and just tell us what has to be done and we'll do it. And so this is the breaking point that I'm just like, you know, again, and this is like the same thing that happened to me with music. We're like, one, this is a big part of my identity. Like everybody knows me as the subscription box girl. Like I also started going to some networking groups around that time, the Entrepreneur Social Club. So they all knew me as that. All my colleagues are from that. All the people like that I know in St. Pete are from that because they were either were vendors or were on my list to be future vendors.
Right.
So, and you know, the news thing went all around our regional area. The lady came to my house and stuff, you know, like, so people know me, like, but it's,
so it's kind of like the ego was like, oh, this is who I am. So this is kind of like the bubble that I kind of own.
Exactly. And leaving that is uncomfortable. But at the same time, I'm like, you know, look, real talk, self to self, like that Kermit meme, except not evil. Like actually, like if it was instead of like a Sith one, if it was like a Jedi Knight one. But, you know, it's like, Jamie, you know, if I sell this company or take investment in this company, these are real adult commitments that I'm making to people. This is no longer like my little thing that if I feel like I don't want to do it anymore, like I don't have to. And, you know, and I just I came to the realization that I didn't make this company to become the subscription box empire of Tampa Bay. And I'm glad that that's what started to happen. It mostly just validated my own talents to me. But now I'm like, before I take people's money, this is actually not why I started the business. Like why I started the business specifically was because I wanted something to do in between my whiteboard video projects, in between client work, so that I could just constantly be working on something to develop my skills. And that was the function of this business. So, and I decided ultimately not to sell it or move forward with any of that stuff. And then I closed the business because it was becoming just such a demand on my time. And that was the point where I started offering copywriting services because I developed that skill through doing this work.
I love that. So that's kind of like, you've had multiple burning the boat moments, even from choosing where to go to school way back when, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like, you know, you sticking to your guns, and it's very easy for people, especially when they're just starting out, to fly too close to the sun. And I mean, that's an amazing decision for you to kind of just sit back and realize, look, like, what was this business truly intended for? And is it serving that purpose? Was it intended to, you know, become the next, you know, big thing in Tampa Bay or St. Pete? Sure, it could have, but that's not my original intention. And so, did people think you were crazy when you took that decision and you said, no, I don't want to?
Absolutely. I mean, people thought that they were really surprised that I didn't wind up doing that. And then also, oh God, you know, all the like year after of like, oh yeah, how's the subscription box going? Oh, I'm not doing that anymore. Oh, why? What happened? Like, well, now I'm doing marketing consulting. So, and I mean, yeah, I really, and I just, and then in a way, it actually came full circle because I wound up going right back to Reddit for hire and advertising my new copywriting services.
There you go.
And
so why copywriting out of everything that, you know?
It was just my favorite.
Gotcha.
I don't like social media marketing. Like I don't enjoy it. I had to do a little bit of everything to run this business. Like I had to make the website. I had to do all of the sales stuff, all of the marketing, all of the setup. And like, I did have social media accounts for it and they got pretty big. Gotcha. I mean, in a relatively short, not like, you know, like my BergBox one had like 800 followers or something, but that's with like, you know, posting kind of inconsistently. Like I don't pay for any type of boosting or whatever, like free grinding, organic growth. That's like, you know, 800 real humans. And well, the like 600 or 700 real customers, and like 100 of them were maybe my vendors, but but you know, they like the box too. So
right. Okay.
And I had a really creative co-marketing strategy that I would provide, like how if you became, for example, an affiliate of a product, you would be provided like email scripts and stuff. I would provide my vendors marketing assets, like send this email to your list stuff. Here's graphics if you want to put it on your Instagram.
So let's take a step back real quick. So you transitioned over to copywriting from subscription. Now, when you say transition over to copywriting, did you start like a consulting business around copywriting, or were you just kind of like going to Reddit and seeing who needed like a sales page done and you would sign up?
Yeah, it was more like that. So I built my career as a consultant over, you know, I've been doing that kind of work. I've been doing like marketing overall for like 4 years, includes from, oh, maybe more now, 18. No, like 5 years. Okay. So I'm like math.
Music.
Starting from, right? And starting from being in Switzerland and doing all of that stuff. And I probably was doing copywriting as like a, you know, you need individual emails, you need a sales page, or, you know, SEO optimized like landing pages with strong calls to action, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
I probably did that part-time for like, I did it all through the rest of my college career. So just instead of like working at Publix or something, I was doing stuff like that.
Okay.
And then I started my consultancy in 2018 after I graduated from college. And so that was just kind of like drawing together everything that I've learned through all of the other work that I did, because, you know, sometimes you give an asset to people and it doesn't work, but the reason why it doesn't work has nothing to do with that, that which you did for them. So that I had many of those like opportunities to learn those in the real marketplace. Cause, you know, I wound up going back to the school stuff, like, because I wound up being significantly off track for the entrepreneurship program, that like by the time I finished all my prereqs and everything, they were like, well, great, you can take your first classes in a year. And so I walked into the advisor's office and I was like, look, I am this close to dropping out of college. So I need you to plunk, bleep, bloop into your computer and tell me what I can graduate with the fastest.
That classic entrepreneur mindset where it's just like, I want to learn this. And then it's like going too slow. So I'm gonna figure it out myself. And then it's like, whatever you wanted to start, they're like, hey, you can't finish this, but you're like, I already mastered this. Like, I'm good.
Right. Well, and also like all the program, I don't think you can learn about entrepreneurship in a school. Like, I think that you need to sell some shit to some people.
That's going to open up a whole can of worms that I would love to get into, but we're going to spend all day.
Yeah, we'll skip that conversation, but that's my opinion is that I, you know, so then she bleep blooped into the computer and she was like, yeah, well, the fastest, you know, degree that you have the most stuff done for would be economics. And I had this like total Matrix moment, like, whoa, like my whole world like slowed down because it's like, you know, I'm a girl. I'm a music person. I'm not a math person. Like, no, you know, that's not me. Like my math is I'm the kind of person that like my standardized test scores, they're like, oh yeah, English, like you're in the top like 98th percentile for reading comprehension. Wow. And you're in the bottom 30th percentile for math. Like, oh no. But you know, but I did have a lot of fun in my micro and macro classes, and I found and so this is something that I've learned through having this moment, like, and going through, and I did ultimately graduate with my degree in economics from the University of South Florida. Go Bulls. It's ingrained in you. It is ingrained in your DNA.
Yeah.
It really is. But yeah, like, so I wound up learning this through that whole journey of graduating with my degree in economics, but you're usually not bad at math like across the board.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like certain areas of math you can be strong or weak in.
Right.
So like I actually have a very good understanding of algebra, and that I think is what made me successful with economics.
Well, it's problem solving.
Exactly.
You know,
And statistics
I think,
made sense to me too.
Absolutely. And so, something that's recurring over your journey is that you're literally just solving problems, right? From choosing the school to figuring out you don't want to do music anymore to how am I going to make a living, having to fly under the radar to ultimately becoming a copywriter. The current theme is you're constantly problem solving.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and I think, well, we can get into that in terms of like what motivates you to solve the problem, because a lot of people would have said, you know what, I'm done, I might just like quit or whatever, but you keep fighting on. So what is that motivation? Where does that come from?
I would just say honestly, like any type of whether it was in the instance of depression or just like emotional discomfort or anxiety, I actually don't come off this way, but I'm a very anxious person. So I guess that and probably also I had a near drowning incident where like, for serious, I almost died as a child. So I think that probably having that struggle as a child, like instilled resilience in me, I guess, maybe. But I mean, like anything, it's a variety of factors. I'm sure it also partly is genetic and partly my parents are, they're not, they don't take not quitting to the extreme though, if like, because I could always just tell them like, if I really genuinely don't like something, then they're like, yeah. But if they feel like I'm just quitting because it's hard, then they're going to be like, well, no,
it's not going to fly.
That's being a quitter. But if you discover that you genuinely like something is not making you happy, then the right decision is to change that. So for me, I think, but it was just from like, we'll call it like a emotional discomfort, whether it's from like a depression or from anxiety. But I feel like where maybe a lot of people get in like, maybe turtle up about it, I'm just like, well, this sucks. What can I do to make that stop?
Right.
I don't
So
like that.
It's kind of like like most people kind of like get into the shell, but you're kind of like, all right, well,
I'm just gonna break
figure this out. Let's go.
Just like Hulk out of that shell.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So let's bring it back home. You started and launched your consulting business last year in 2018. Is that the Doer? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's the Doer Co. So that's my current company now. And yeah, I mean, that has just been a journey. I mean, we talked all about to getting here and not even, I would say that I just feel like my journey is accelerating, like as I keep going down the path. So I would say that I've probably learned just even more in the last 2 years than I did in the other 3 years combined. Probably I've learned a lot more even this year. And I would say something really important to my success as a marketer that we haven't been able to touch on yet in this conversation is that I'm really into learning. I'm constantly learning. And I am not like an education snob. Like I read a lot of books, but I'm not going to say that you have to read books.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you read 48 last year, right?
Yep. For the last 3 years, I use this website called goodreads.com to track my books. Okay. And so they have a Goodreads reading challenge. Yeah. So I just started signing up for that. I must have done it maybe 3 or 4. Let's look at my Goodreads right now. All right. I remember I think I've done it at least 3 years in a row.
Okay.
Where's my whole.
So, and I love that you said that like you're kind of like a student always. You're kind of like,
you have to be constantly learning. And I read this really sad statistic a while ago, but it's something like, oh gosh, like upwards of 60% of people don't read a single book after they graduate college. the learning doesn't stop, you know, like how crazy, like just
I feel like
how
that. I feel like
verbalize that idea. How crazy does that sound? Like, oh yeah, by the time I was 21, I learned everything I needed to know.
Yeah,
Be
it's wild.
successful.
I mean, like it's just crazy. Like I work a lot at a Starbucks, and most of the Starbucks that I work at aren't connected to like a Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
Every time I walk through, I'm like, oh man, there's another book I want to read. You know, but I think that that's the
There are
type
so many good books. I like honestly I
can't
can't read all of the books that I want to read.
you can't. And the thing about it is that no matter what problem or whatever challenge you're facing, someone has faced it before, and it's probably in a book.
Yeah. And also just a lot worse stuff has happened to people. Like, you know, I know that trauma experiences definitely influence, like, you know, becoming a murderer or something crazy down the road.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that, like, because you had something traumatic happen to you, that you're going to be like an unsuccessful person or a bad person, because you could look like literally one-to-one example for people who had nothing can ever be the same. But for people who had a similar type of trauma, one person's a murderer, one person's a motivational speaker, like,
Absolutely.
or even just living a happy, normal life. Like, so it's just, I always feel like a lot worse stuff has happened to people than has happened to me. And I almost died as a child. So like a lot worse stuff. You know what? If I died like that, it honestly would not have been that bad of a way to die, because like, it was like, you know, like when the cartoon's over and it just kind of goes in, like,
down, right?
yeah, like it wasn't painful. It was scary. Like what happened was that I was swimming in a pool of a camp of a place that rhymes with YMCA. But they were supposed to, by their policies, have 2 lifeguards. They only had 1 lifeguard, and the lifeguard was in the pool. So you know that, like, when you're in the pool, you can't see what's under it, which is why they have the chairs at the pool. So and I was swimming, and a boy who was a little bit probably like older than me, you know, boys think it's funny. Like, you know, I was like, I don't know, 6 or something or less. I really don't. I remember so little about it that, like, I don't even know how old I was when that happened.
You kind of just blocked it out. You're kind of just like,
yeah, I'm like, well, that's over. What I remember more is like the fallout of dealing with it, because it gave me like severe respiratory problems. And I was in and out of the hospital for a long time, like as a child. And like, I, you know, have memories of like my mom coming to visit me in the hospital on Valentine's Day and like bringing me my little, you know, bears and cards and stuff there to the hospital. And like, I would stay in the hospital for like a month. Wow. And I had, cause I struggled with pneumonia after that. But what happened was that I was swimming, and like, you know, boys, you're little and one's a little bit older and they think it's funny to pick on little girls. So I was swimming, and he grabbed my foot from behind and pulled me under, but I got scared. So I gasped and water. And so the lifeguard didn't see me. And then it was someone's parent who was coming to pick them up. Like, it was like, oh my God, there's a fucking child on the bottom of the pool. So like nobody really, I don't know how long I was under there. Like, I was like drowned.
No, but you were legit. Yeah. And
I was drowned. Like I don't know that I died, but I was like pretty drowned, like water in my lungs. Yeah. We don't know really how long I was on the bottom of the pool.
And it happens fast. I lost a good friend of mine in high school to drowning. And it literally is just like, you know, he was a swimmer, confident, and it doesn't take that much, and then it's out. So
and I really don't remember like anything about that. I remember the beginning of it, but I don't remember like even like obviously I went to a hospital afterwards. Like I don't remember any of that. But what I do more remember is how it affected my childhood and it was really like, gosh, I was so sick all the time. And I really was living in a day-to-day situation where it gave me asthma also. It just totally wrecked my respiratory system doing that.
So do you think that this whole experience and like all the difficulties that it gave you afterwards kind of made everything else down, you know, your life kind of like, you know, I've been through worse? Like,
I mean, apparently, you know, because I don't really like, even though it was hard and I just don't like feel that bad about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's weird to say,
Uh-huh.
but maybe because, I mean, I got so used to living in an emergency situation that like for a lot of my childhood, I had to, when I woke up, take a air volume test, like the little, I don't know if you've had a friend with asthma or something, but like the tube with the little marshmallow looking thing in it. And if I failed that air volume test, I had to make an emergency doctor's appointment and go to the doctor that day. And then if I failed the test in the doctor's office, I had to go to the hospital. So like that, like, I guess that I just got used to living like that. And I mean, you know, I've been to the, and then I don't know how long I'm
interesting that you choose like it's a wind instrument, right?
Yeah, and they're big.
Yeah,
I play 8 instruments, and most of them are bass instruments, like bass clarinet, contrabass clarinet, baritone saxophone. I marched with a tenor saxophone, so I don't know how that happened, but it's just like a great irony of my life.
You're like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
All right, that's how I would put it. Wow. Okay, so let's. You know, we're kind of at the top of the hour here, so let's wrap things up. Now, with the Doer and your copywriting services, I know that you're like a 7-figure copywriter. So what would you say are kind of like the pillars that people can walk away with when it comes to writing good copy?
Yes. Okay. So if you want to write good copy, there's a few important things. I would say the most important thing to know is that it is not about you. Shut the fuck up about yourself, about us. Nobody cares about you. So the way that I look at it is like, I would say, like, you want to improve your conversions immediately, go look at if you have, you know, whatever things your assets are. Like maybe you have email automation sequences, maybe you have landing pages, a website. It will depend on what your business model is. Read it out loud. And every time you say, I write good copy, we do this, our product does blah, 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 blah. Change that to say something more along the lines of, oh, I had a video where I just, I'll send you the video.
I'll link the video into the show notes for anyone.
Yeah, I have this video where I looked at like a specific sentence in the copy that I was writing for a client. And what it said was like, in the mastermind program, you get, you know, like guidance, blah, 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 blah. And then I flipped it around to say, you get guidance, blah, blah, the benefits when you join the mastermind program. And so that kind of stuff seems so simple. But I mean, I live in a world where you can change one word in a headline and get a 28% increase in revenue. So it's not that crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to tell you a story about that. But okay, so one of them is just making sure that when you're writing copy, remove any first person language.
Exactly. All of it. Or if you want it, when you include it, you want it to be in relation to you. So no, I, me, ours, we, fuck that. You'll get when you work with us. That is a better way to explain it to people. Awesome. I would just say, oh, here's a big tip. Okay, this is something I do all the time. Read your copy out loud. And I know that I said that as part of the last tip, but the thing is that you want to I read through all my email automation sequences. Like if I'm setting up a launch or something, I read through all the assets out loud. And now I make my assistant do it for me. You know, you want to read it out loud, and anywhere that you like trip on a sentence or stumble on a sentence, you want to mark that and you want to change it. And then you want to keep reading it and rereading it and read it through until you can read it without making a mistake, because you fucking wrote it. Like, you know the most about your business and product. You're the expert. So if you can't read it without making a mistake, how is somebody without that much context going to? They're not. That's the answer, is they're not.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that I would say is just, you know, I'm trying to think of like feedback that I've had to give to my assistant a lot while I've been teaching her how to do it. And she was a good writer, and she had a lot of writing experience, but more like in creative writing.
Gotcha.
And sales writing is just totally different. Like, to be honest with you, I find like journalism majors and stuff make the worst copywriters.
You can't. It's tough.
It's too much of like about the ego,
Yeah.
because then it becomes about the ego of like making a great piece of art. And I'm like, copy is not art. I don't consider myself an artist. I'm an artisan. Like, I have to constantly train my skills.
Right.
That's what I am. And I'm producing something with my hands. And but I see myself more as like a trade skill than like, I don't consider myself an artist.
Yeah. And the thing too is that like, you have to consider that most people read below a 5th grade reading level.
Yes.
You know?
So that I'm glad that you said that, because this is my point, that copywriting is not the time for your SAT words. So put your $10 words back in your fucking wallet and use your penny words. Use your 1 cent words, okay? Absolutely. You want to be like less Shakespeare and more Hemingway is, is what you want.
I love that. That's awesome. Okay, great.
And overall, like, people just write stuff. Oh gosh, I mean, like, there's so much that's wrong with copywriting. So I'm like, to distill it. I mean, if you do these few things, you will see an immediate improvement. But can I tell you that there's not more stuff wrong with your copy? No. That's why you need a professional. But something else is that people just don't really seem to have a good understanding of how to explain things to people in a way that they will comprehend. Like, and especially, you know, if you're a entrepreneur and you're selling a product, you're very proud about your product, and like, you had to go through so many steps to get this beautiful refined diamond, you know, and you took it from the rough, so you know all the what didn't work. Like, you know, when the aluminum was like 8 millimeters thick, that fucking sucked. But now that it's like 5.67 or like 0.567 millimeters thick, that's the sweet spot. Well, nobody fucking cares. So what you don't want to say is, well, and I mean, look, you need to have sometimes product specifications, like, because people need to know that stuff, but that's not explaining to them what the fuck this is. And you're going to say, not, you know, this is 0.5 millimeters. You're going to say, it's really easy to hold in your hands because it has a proprietary design that, you know, we worked for diligently through multiple revisions to create so that it would be the most comfortable for you. That's the difference. Absolutely.
It's kind of like I like to explain it with, like, when I deal with my own clients, where it's like, look at P90X. Okay. They created the term muscle confusion, and because of that, it became the #1 at-home workout, because they said muscle confusion rather than, you know, saying, hey, you're doing like a HIIT workout or something like that. Like they
or like, you know, dynamically programmed.
You know, that's it. And like, would you agree that, like, when most entrepreneurs, business owners are writing their copy, they're too close to the solution,
absolutely,
to really kind of grasp what it is they're actually doing for people?
Yes, 1,000%. And how I would, like, a good tip that you could overcome that, because I know that not everyone is in the place where they can hire a professional, and there are steps that need to come before you can get to that level. So if you're there, a way that you can try to address that issue of being like too close to the source, because again, like, you're the expert. You have like, what I feel like what happens is twofold, and it's not a bad thing, you know. It's that they're very excited. They're just so pumped about what they're doing, and I am happy for you. And when you're an expert, you forget what you didn't know. You know, you had to spend a lot of time, many years, building and whatever life experiences you had that led to your invention or creation or system or whatever. But you forget that. And I mean, even when you recount your story, you still like forget what other people don't know and what you didn't know when you started. So the best way to avoid this problem would be, like, let's say you have a piece of copy. Hopefully you went through and did the other steps before you show this, but you should show, like, find, you know, I would not even, I was going to say like your wife or your spouse, but maybe they're not even, you want to find a friend or somebody who has no fucking clue what you're doing.
Yeah.
Go to McDonald's, buy someone a Big Mac and ask them to like take a look at your stuff and then say, what questions do you have? Because that is going to tell you everything about how you're not connecting with people. Because the thing is that it makes sense to you because you have so much context that other people don't.
That's gold. I love that. That is awesome right there. So it sounds like I'm going to be buying Big Macs for a lot of people. So Jamie, your story has been incredible. And I think, just from listening to it, the big takeaways that our listeners can take is the fact that there's many times in our lives when we're doing one thing and it feels like that becomes our identity, but it doesn't mean that that identity has to trap us, that we can actually continue to push forward as long as we have that, student mindset to always continue to learn and be afraid to make mistakes, but at the same time, rather than, hiding in your shell, just breaking through it.
Just Hulk through your fucking shell. Yeah. You can do it. I can do it. And I'm a girl and I'm 5'1", so you can do it. And I think that that's an excellent, absolutely 100,000% agree with you. That's the best takeaway. And you guys, your identity is something that you can create and it's going to change through your entire life. So when you get into these moments like I did where you feel trapped, or that's the ego talking to you that like, well, this is your identity, and leaving that is, you're comfortable, and leaving where you're comfortable is going to be hard. Just remember that, this was a step towards the next best thing for you. And you can always be honest with yourself. Something that served you in the past is not always going to serve you in the future. And the best thing that you can do for yourself is to be honest when that's the case. And even when the decision is hard, to make the hard decision and Hulk out of your shell. You can do it.
I gotta add like an explosion.
Yes.
Back to that right there. Jamie, where can we find you? How do we get in touch with you? What are your social media links? Let the people know.
Yes, my Instagram is the Doer Co. So TheDoerCo. My Facebook is also facebook.com/the Doer Co. My website has a hyphen in it. So it's the hyphen, and that's the one that's in the middle, not the underscore that's like down. So the hyphen Doerco.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Jamie Doreschuck, Doerco. No, I'm like, wait, Doerschck. It's a lot to spell though, so Oscar will probably helpfully have my full name for you to just conveniently copy and paste. I think my LinkedIn is /Jamie Doer, so JAMIEDOER if you want to go the URL route, or you can just search me up. But honestly, if you type my name into Google, it will come up with like my LinkedIn. I have a fun blog that's on medium.com/ at the, and then an underscore, I hope, the underscore Doerco.
No problem. For all the listeners, don't worry, I got your back. It'll be inside the show notes.
It is an underscore.
Yeah.
And then my email is Jamie at THE-DOERCO.com. Jamie at thedoerco.com. Don't forget that hyphen. Like Spider-Man, the hyphen is important.
There you go. All right, Jamie, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's listening to another segment of Burning the Boats. Wow, that's all I could say. It was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for listening.
All right, everyone. Bye-bye.